Well, good day and thanks for joining me on the program Newsroom. Sorry for the late start. And of course, we know that this is beyond our control. The prevailing crisis in the English-speaking part of Cameroon has taken an unprecedented twist recently with the killings of military officers. And so President Paul Biya, upon arrival from the AU-EU summit that took place in Abidjan, declared war against what he calls terrorists. And as we speak, the War Council equally met in Yaoundé to evaluate the security situation in the country. And as if that was not enough, this has a direct bearing with the crisis in the English-speaking part of the country. And then it is time for us to cast an eye on certain moves by the government to solve the crisis. So to speak, the Social Democratic Front, the SDF, equally punctured parliamentary session as they asked the government to address the Anglophone crisis, which, or that seemingly, was not on the agenda of the parliamentary session. Now, these and more will constitute our major talking point for this edition of Newsroom. I'm Kejan Henry Atebe, thanking you for being part of the program as we roll the ball for our discussion. It's always a pleasure to refresh our minds on what the newspapers had for the week. And of course, our man on the beat is no other person but Dominic Member. Good day, Dominic.
Good day, Kejan Henry, and good day to all of you that are watching us. We start the press review this day with the Sun newspaper that writes that the Speaker of the National Assembly must swallow the bitter pill that is being spilled by Speaker or members of Parliament for the Social Democratic Front (SDF). The paper says that despite the strict observation of party lines of the CPDM party by the Speaker of the National Assembly, he must have to accept the decision taken by SDF parliamentarians to include the Anglophone crisis in the agenda for discussion at the level of the National Assembly. Now, the Rambla newspaper talks about the National Assembly by quoting Honorable Joseph Weber of Jakiri constituency, saying that the National Assembly today is nothing else than a house that endorses all documents that come from the presidency of the Republic. The newspaper quotes Honorable Joseph Weber indicating that the National Assembly have been termed as a club of rented comedians that does nothing but trying to endorse what is coming at the level of the presidency. The newspaper, the Rambla newspaper, equally tells us that Honorable Joseph Weber of Jakiri constituency is not attending the November session of the National Assembly. The paper states that people of Jakiri constituency call on their representative not to attend the National Assembly for the very fact that the National Assembly has failed to address the Anglophone crisis 1 year after it started that was in October 2016. We continue talking about leadership, this time with the Sun newspaper that writes saying that the Northwest Funds Union has been divided into two camps. The paper tells us that last weekend in the town of Nkambe in Tonga Mountain Division, a fraction of the Northwest Funds Union, that is Nowefu, elected His Royal Majesty Ibrahim Jafu as the president of Nowefu, while another fraction in the town of Bamenda elected His Royal Highness Sheikh Barnabas of Mott Village as the president of Nowefu. The paper tells us that there is a leadership torso at the level of Nowefu that has divided the once upon a time respected Funds Union in the northwest region of the country that is now operating in two factions. The paper equally mentioned that funds have been separated and the others have remained indifferent following the fact that the fraction of Nowefu that once upon a time was a great Funds Union in the northwest region has been divided. Now the paper goes into details indicating that the division within the Northwest Funds Union might be related to the upcoming presidential, parliamentary and municipal elections that is expected to take place in the country by next year, 2018. The paper indicates that the funds are trying to position themselves in order to reap rich from the money that will be coming from various politicians that will be moving around the Northwest region in order to canvass for support. We continue the press review with the Star newspaper that tells us that government bilingual high school Menji was set ablaze this week by unknown individuals in the town of Menji. The paper quotes that the school was set ablaze a few hours after the residence of the Member of Parliament for Libialen subdivision was equally set ablaze. The paper indicates that Honorable Dr. Fonje Bernard was not at his residence when the incident took place. The paper says the senior divisional officer for Libialem division have threatened the population to invite elements of the Rapid Intervention Battalion, the B, to be in that division if crime wave does not come to an end in that particular division. Now we continue saying that most secret of Cameroon presidency have flooded the social media. That is an observation of Repair newspaper. The paper tells us that secret information at the level of the presidency, most of them are now found in the social media, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, and equally other social media platforms for the public to know about. The paper indicates that this has not been the case in the past, as a top secret of the state were gathered at the level of the presidency. Now the paper, Repair newspaper, continues saying that some media houses based in France, most especially France 24, Le Monde newspaper, and the other newspapers or media houses in France are focusing now on the activities of Cameroon, and the reason being that they are preparing to discredit the President of the Republic ahead of the holding of the 2018 presidential elections. Now we continue the press review with L'Afrique newspaper that instead sees the contrary of what France-based media houses are seeking at the level of the presidency. L'Afrique newspaper tells us that the Minister of Planning, Regional Development, or the Minister of Economic Planning and Regional Development, Louis-Paul Mutaze, is prepared even to die in order to support the President of the Republic, President Paul Biya, to win 2018 presidential elections. Information newspaper says power Tozo at the level of or between the Director General of ENAM, that is the National School of Administration and the Magistracy ENAM in Yaoundé, and the Minister of Public Service and Administrative Reforms, the power struggle over the release of result of ENAM this year might possibly cost the Director General of ENAM his position. The paper Information tells us that there is a need to pray for the Director General of ENAM for him to maintain his position after the struggle to publish the list of successful candidate of ENAM failed to take place. The list was denied by the Minister of Public Service and Administrative Reforms on grounds that the list was published without the respect of norms of the administration or the School of Administration. We end Kijahen with a Kalara newspaper that is writing about an intriguing story saying that the Chief of Army Staff in Cameroon have suspended 5 soldiers on grounds that their negligence led to the stealing of some items from his private residence. The newspaper tells us that the residence of the Army Chief of Staff, or the Chief of Army Staff, that is General Cloth Maker, was placed under the supervision of 5 soldiers that neglected their activity or their duty, and his house was burgled and some items taken away. That's the end of the press review, Keja Henry.
Oh, thanks very much, Dominique Meme. And of course, the very last item on your press review is very intriguing. I'll start asking ourselves the question how it happened that the house of the Army Chief of Staff was burgled when, I suppose, is highly guarded, more than the presidency. Well, thanks once more, Dominique Meme. Elvis Chumka is one of our guests on today's edition of the program. He's a biomedical scientist. Elvis, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kedem.
Elvis, you've been missing in action.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be back here. I've not been able to come here for a while.
Where did Elvis go fishing this time?
Work-related, my professional activities that time.
Now, Elvis, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, Elvis, World AIDS Day is celebrated yesterday. In fact, this is the World AIDS Week, we should put it that way. I think it's very much a concern of the nation. But then Cameroonians are wondering aloud when figures come up. These figures, we don't know what the figures are. Are we seeing that the figures or the prevalence rate is increasing, is decreasing, which age group, etc.? Are people still not very scared about AIDS? So what is the situation, Elvis?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kejang. And good morning to the other panelists and to your televiewers. Like every year, 1st December is now synonymous with the AIDS pandemic, which has been plaguing the world and most especially Africa. Over 80% of AIDS, HIV positive people living with AIDS in the world are found in Africa. It has always been a problem for public health specialists and governments. For Cameroon, we are at 4.3% as of 2016. Since 2017, figures are not yet out. 4.3% may sound low, but if you look at it as a relative value of the adult population, it's actually still high. This year, what was new was the fact that among those 4.3%, teenagers, especially teenage girls, 15 to 19, were twice as much likely to be positive than last year. So 2% of those positive were teenagers from 15 to 19%. It poses many problems, many factors. Maybe the sociology, how our girls are protected, is it rape, is it juvenile delinquencies, how the sensitization projects are being carried out. As for other parts of the statistics, we have 53.3% of pregnant women that have access to what we call PMTCT programs. It's a program that PMTCT means prevention of mother-to-child transmission. It's a crucial part of the fight against AIDS, because if you have to fight against AIDS in the next generations, we have to prevent infection of newborn babies from their pregnant mothers. That's the only way we can get to an AIDS-free generation, like the slogan say. So PMTCT programs have been in Cameroon for a while now, and it's a time for us to appreciate international partners, American partners and the European Union partners, the CDC, the Center for Disease Control of America, and other local NGOs, Global Health and others, who are doing wonderful jobs in this respect. The Baptists are also doing some wonderful job with PMTCT. For what concerns diagnosis too, we have to say there's work to be done. Most people are still reticent from knowing their status. I mean, what is worse? The question you have to ask yourself is, what is worse? Do I wait and get sick and die, or do I get the bad news now and get away with it, get over with it?
Some people
and of course, there is a chance that getting the bad news is always the best chance if you want to live. Getting the bad news and then it makes you die before treatment. That's the problem of stigmatization. There's no reason why you died before because you had the bad news. ARVs, antiretroviral drugs, which are the drugs against AIDS, are widely available in Cameroon today. At least 80% of our regions are covered by free ARVs. You pay nothing. You just get registered, get a number, and get your drugs every month. It's always, we have to call on journalists, marketing experts and others to sensitize the population and let everybody be aware of their status so that we can attain the United Nations AIDS program slogan of 90-90-90, which says that 90% of the population, the target is to get 90% of the population tested, 90% knowing their status, and 90% of those who are positive at least get access to ARVs. We are getting there, and we hope the situation gets better in the future.
We hardly hear much of the use of condoms, Elvis. People feel, well, there's no need. That is a fabrication.
We have to be careful about conspiracy theories. I know what you're getting at. They have been a serious obstacle to some of to our achievement, our target of getting some of these prevalence studies numbers reduced. Many people are saying things in our neighborhoods that condoms are there to actually infect us. You remember a time when a pope was involved in a controversy, the last pope. He said something very unfortunate. I mean, I hope he was sorry about that, because condoms are in no way helping us get AIDS. I mean, it's actually the contrary. What condoms are there for is not to promote sexual activity. Of course, nobody can promote sexual activity. Every human being has that penchant to sexual activity. As long as you're an adult, you will have that penchant. What we have to do is that if you must carry out sexual intercourse, you either abstain. If you can't abstain, if you must carry it, you either be faithful to one partner, or you use preservatives and condoms and prevent yourself from having. We have to fight against such fake news and make sure that they are not part of our societies anymore. You use your condoms, the ones that have been accredited by the public, and make sure that you use them when you have to. or else you be faithful to your partner.
Thanks very much, Elvis. We'll move on. I'll just switch straight to Mr. Sylvester Ngan. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here once more.
Sylvester Ngan is an education activist, very advocating all the time for quality education, especially in the English-speaking subsystem. Well, I'll just cue from where Elvis dropped. But my worry as a teacher, we hear of 8 free holidays. These things, children go on holidays before the campaigns are launched, which means the students are already, probably before just at the eve of back to school. Does that make sense to you, where you launch 8 free holidays when children are 3 weeks to the start of the school year, whereas they would have been informed about the dangers of that disease before they move for holidays?
What is important is the message, and if the message is to be given in 1 week and that 1 week falls towards the end of holidays, it doesn't matter. The important thing is the message.
When the damage has been done,
no, not
they would have learned the prevention or preventive methods before they go for holidays.
It is just a slogan that goes around certain activities. We've come to understand that the battle against AIDS has no time limit.
Okay.
We in school, as teachers, at home, as parents, in the churches, as pastors, it is an everyday debate, and so there's no timeline for the AIDS story to be told to our children. The slogan AIDS Free Holidays is just a slogan that goes around a particular activity by a particular group of people. It doesn't mean that our children should learn about it only during holidays.
Okay. Anyway, thanks very much, Sylvester Ngan. Welcome to the show, all the way from the northwest region of the country. How is up, as we call it this way?
Well, we are coping with the prevailing situation. At least we can still go in and out of the region. So,
Mehmet Dominic actually raised a point in his press review talking about the conflict that rages on between the director of ENAM and the Minister of Public Service and Administrative Reforms. That is something to be taken very seriously. Yeah. An issue of insubordination, you see that? Or an issue of interpretation of the law?
Well, it's not even about the law. We have become too used to drama around public examinations, especially which have to do with schools that are, the schools we consider at elite schools. It is year in, year out. There's a lot of drama around it. And I must tell you, what spills out into the media is just the tip of the iceberg. Every entrance exam in Cameroon.
Even the teachers training?
Of course. It's about bribery, it's about corruption. Sometimes some of this drama is provoked by the conflict of whose name goes in and whose name stays out. So we have become too used to, and we look forward to a day when public entrance examinations to some of those key schools will follow nothing but merit and not controversy and all the games that are played around.
Thank you very much, Sylvester Ngan Yengo. Welcome to the show. Now, Mehmet Dominic, you stay with us on the show where we're expecting Mr. Ferdinand Difo to join us soon. Now, Mehmet, the Senior Divisional Officer for Manu, has published a release, and the release came out yesterday, making rounds on social media that all the denizens of his area, carved out some certain areas, that they should evacuate or relocate to some of the villages. In fact, this is not good news at all.
Yes, I read the communique on the social media that was yesterday around 4 p.m. The Senior Divisional Officer for Manu signed a decision saying that it names some villages in the Umajok subdivision, Akwaya subdivision, and the Manu subdivision. And
the Memphis Central subdivision.
Memphis Central subdivision. He indicated that he named some villages and asked the inhabitants to quit these villages, else when time comes, they will be considered as accomplices to secessionists. Now, when I read the communique, the first question I was asking myself is, when they quit their own villages, these old mothers, these parents that have been living in their villages for years, where are they going to? That's the first thing. Now, I tried reading the entire communique to find out if government has allocated a new village, well constructed, secured, for these people that will be quitting their villages to get there. The communique did not mention. Maybe a different communique will come out to tell us where these villagers were resettled for the time being. From what the minister, or from what the Senior Divisional Officer of Manu Division has written, it gives us the impression that in the hours ahead, in the days ahead, or in the weeks ahead, there will be some sort of a deployment of military forces in this particular subdivision he has mentioned in his communique. Because asking the people to leave is as if in those days that Mount Cameroon was about to erupt, they used to tell people to quit some places.
Yeah.
It's as if he's telling us that something is about to happen,
something very dangerous,
negative that might affect the entire population, even domestic animals about to happen. So it's asking the people to quit their villages. For now, he has not mentioned what is going to happen, but he's asking the people to quit. But the question now is, they are quitting there to go to where? When you are telling an old mother of 80 years to leave his small head in Manfe subdivision in Umojok in Akwaya to go elsewhere, what do you expect? Have they sent vehicle to evacuate these people to safer places? That is what the communique has not mentioned.
We'll just probably stay with the communique and Gan Sylvester before we move into our major talking point. This is synonymous to the biblical mass exodus orchestrated by Moses.
Yeah.
The exodus, that means they'll be living with the animals, like Dominic says.
It is, we are still barely digesting that communique, and it's a complicated situation to imagine that people will have to abandon entire villages because government is looking for some supposed terrorists.
Yeah.
And I was asking myself the question, will the terrorists stay behind to wait for government when the people, normal citizens, are going away? Or is it going to be a problem between the forces, whoever comes, and the homes and the trees that will stay behind? It's a complicated situation, and we can only pray that any action that is taken during this crisis should consider collateral damage, because if the collateral damage supersedes the intention of our acts, then we begin to wonder if it was necessary at all. Let's think about it.
Could it be the fallouts of the decision arrived at during yesterday's meeting or conclave, in-camera session of the World Council? Elvis?
I'm just learning about that communique now. I will be very cautious to comment. To comment that the communique. However, what I may say is that if that's the case, if it's as Meme has just told us, the intentions may be right, but sometimes the actions may cause, like somebody just said, the side effects should not, be more than the disease. What poses a problem to me throughout this crisis has been a failure of intelligence. I think our intelligence has not been very active. Many things have surprised the government in this issue. Many of the actions, either of movements, of activists, and even of the terrorists, have surprised the government, have surprised the forces of law and order. And our Cameroonian defense is based on popular intelligence. We have a popular defense. General Semenge was describing once on Canal with Anani Rabie Binji. He made a very interesting description of our defense. What made us succeed against threats in the past has been intelligence from the populations. In the north today we have vigilantes that give real-time information to our forces of law and to the administrators. If you get to a situation where you're sidelining the populations and the populations don't feel like part of the administrator, like an ally to the administrator, there will be a problem. If that is the case, I keep saying cautiously, if the community says clearly, brutally to say, leave the villages and go out and so on, I wonder what the intelligence will be like. The population was supposed to be the first person to give intelligence on who is who in a village, which stranger has just come in and what is he doing? Is he coming from Nigeria? Is he a Cameroonian? And who is who? Those are the kind of intelligence that could help solve this issue without too much damage. Well, we wait to see what the future holds.
The senior division officer was very categorical at the end of the communique, saying that even those who are doing business crossing the river, Mani River, etc., should suspend their activities. Yeah. That might have very negative repercussions.
Yeah, we remember that the borders between Cameroon and Nigeria towards Manfi was shut down. That was on the 29th of September. But some weeks ago, the border was reopened. Yeah. Now, the senior divisional officer of Mayun Division is telling these traders again to stop their business activities crossing through Manyu and getting into Nigeria. I think that is another way of saying that the borders between Cameroon and Nigeria through Ikok once again will be closed down. all these, I mean, you just ask a question if it's one of the fallout of the security, high-level security meeting that held Friday in Yaoundé. Perhaps it might be with a good intention to secure the population, but the issue now is what measures are being put in place in order to make sure that these innocent civilians are being taken care of. I insist on the fact that here we are in Aqua, that is in Douala. Imagine they tell the inhabitants of people that have been planted here for years to quit in the next 5 hours, 4 days, or things like that. How are they going to move? How many things do they carry? Where are they going to? That is the question we're asking. Because in the struggle to get secessionists that are committing atrocities, we should not punish innocent people that are sitting in their houses that knows nothing about the destruction that is taking place. So my question now is, these people from these villages that are outlined, 3 subdivisions, Emmanuel Division, Oyomojok, Emmanuel Subdivision, Manfe Central, and the Akwaya Subdivision, the villages that are outlined, this population, they are leaving their villages. Where are they going to? How do government take care of them? Who feed them throughout the period that they will be there? And they communicate on the social media, the period to which these people will stay out of their homes is not mentioned. So it's so indefinite that where are they going to? For how long will they be there? Who will be feeding them during this period? That is the question we're still asking.
Well, we keep our fingers on the on it, and as time evolves, we will be informing our televiewers as much as we gather facts. Well, let's have a break. When we come back, our major talking point. It all started like a joke 1 year ago when teachers asked for the system to be reviewed. I'm talking about English speaking subsystem of education. And of course, the unionists had a standoff with the government on this issue. 1 year down the road, the question is still on the lips of all the Cameroonians. And from every indication, just about 50% resumption rate has been recorded in the English-speaking part of the country. I'm talking about back to school. And if we have to go by these statistics, the 50% is much more in the metropolis. Ngan Sylvester, welcome once again to the program.
Thank you, Mr. Keji.
You are an educationist, you are a teacher, and I must tell our televiewers that you have been very much concerned about this issue. Now, let me ask you again, have you resumed schools in the northwest and southwest region of the country?
I think you've rightfully given the picture by stating that about 50% in the metropolis only, major towns only. So it's 1 year down in the crisis. The Anglophone Education community is still very much in pain, in disarray. There's a lot of indignation, and we keep praying that things should get better, because it's unprecedented in the history of Cameroon and the history of Anglophone Cameroon that we find ourselves in such situations.
1 year down with the Anglophone crisis, Sylvester. Now, what is your assessment?
1 year down, a lot has happened. Like we're saying, particularly in the domain of education, there's still a lot of pain. Children are going to school, and those who are managing to go to school are doing that in a lot of fear and tension. And we have to look at where we started. Teachers called the school shutdown, indefinite school shutdown, joining the lawyers who were already on strike. And it's important to know here that it was indefinite because the issues were compelling, and Anglophones understand that for technical education to end in Ombe, a Francophone head of school head was appointed, who came and changed the system, changed the programs, and introduced the Francophone system of Caproba Tuabak. So Anglophone parents and teachers saw this coming into general education with the mass posting of teachers and transfer of teachers into a general education system. So that somehow explains why it was a desperate move, and it was termed indefinite. It was quite an anomaly because in the domain of trade unionism, you cannot call an indefinite strike unless you have the capacity to pay your teachers. Lawyers could do that, but not teachers. But then the issues were compelling. You know, the Anglophone system of education is very dear to us Anglophones and to Cameroon in general. You know that it's not only Anglophones that are in that system. Francophone children, their great majority are moving towards the system. So it's a system that is dear to us. And so in the face of such tendencies, we can understand why such desperate moves were taken.
Let us look at the 50% resumption rate. Well, majority in the metropolis and the villages. We discovered that some children are going to school. What about the teachers?
Well, I think what is important for us to understand here, the picture, you need to go down. You're a journalist. Get down and you would really understand what is happening.
I've been down too many times.
Yeah, but what's important for us to understand the context of such a program is what has government been doing? Looking at the issues that were tabled. And you will understand that government has done a lot. We've heard about the French department, ENS Bambly, subventions, lots of things have happened. But I think we need to be honest to say that government is doing a lot to address the issue of, or the aspect of Anglophone crisis that have to do with education. But they are not putting a finger on the issue. Because this French department and lots of other things are not about the Anglophone problem in education. So I think that is what our audience needs to understand.
Now, you rightly pointed out the government created the presidential move created technical education, teachers training college in the northwest region that is attached to the University of Bamenda, and of course the one in Kumba attached to the University of Buya. That is a commendable move.
Yeah, it is commendable. You see, to have another school of engineering in the country, it's a wonderful thing for our educational landscape. But again, is it solving the Anglophone problem in technical education? That's what we need to say. You see, the Anglophone problem in technical education was caused at the base. The system was destroyed at the base. And so if you have to solve the problem, you have to undertake reforms at the base so that you can then move up to the higher education. Take note of the fact that we have an insert in Bamenda, an insert in Kumba. Does it solve the problem? Did we need several higher education institutions to solve the problem? The answer is no. And take note of the fact that for so many decades, ENS Bambly alone supplied enough teachers to the system. Why do you think we need 2 inserts to solve a problem like that? Again, the problem for Anglophones in technical education was not the distance from, Buya to Douala, insert Douala. It was not the distance from Buya to Yaoundé for Polytechnic Yaoundé. It was about the nature of the system operating in the schools. You get the point I'm making here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so solving the problem here entails going to the roots of the matter. And the roots of the matter for technical education, like general education, also is about the structures. And in the list of teachers' demands, you had 2 important things there. You had a question on education councils and another issue on separating pedagogic change in the ministries of education. These are the fundamental issues. Once you put the finger on this, you are putting the finger on the core issue of Anglophone education in this crisis.
And the Gogomo-led commission to the Northwest region actually addressed more than 2/4 or 2/3 rather of these issues.
No, they addressed nothing. They made recommendations. They made proposals. And the list is long.
But that was the
so
beginning.
In that list, now government is trying to do some things. That's why you heard about the French department. And of course, they tried to do some redeployment of teachers. But it is not complete.
1,000 teachers, bilingual teachers is something commendable still.
It is commendable, but it doesn't solve the problem. I don't know who is a bilingual science teacher in Cameroon. But I'm saying that the deployment of teachers in the system was a key thing. But government has started, and it's ongoing. It has to be total. But then, like I said, you see, the issue of institutions is very important, Mr. Keja. You cannot run 2 education systems having only experts of one education system at the top. The Minister of Secondary Education is Francophone. The Secretary of State is Francophone. The Inspector General of Pedagogy is also Francophone in all the ministries. Can these people manage the 2 systems of education when they do not accept that there's a difference between physics and physics? That's the question. So government has to put its finger on the issue, which has to do with institutions.
But I suppose these people work with the Anglophone experts, technicians, to be able to tell them this is what we need to do.
No, you see, there are two systems, and the law is clear, and the laws are very, very clear. On this same set, I quoted the 1998 law of orientation in education. The education system shall comprise of two systems, right? French speaking and English speaking. The two shall coexist, each preserving its specific nature of evaluation and award of certificates. The education problem is about the failure to implement the laws.
And now with the education forum that has been announced, maybe that would be a way out to the issue? Do you see that?
A way out
or there might still be a standoff?
Certainly there might be a standoff. But the education forum is good to assess the whole system. And again, I would want to ask myself, the last forum was in 95. And up to now, we have not been able to assess where did we fail after that forum. Because the law I'm quoting was a result of that forum. So it would be important if government can organize an important assessment of that forum. You get the point I'm making?
I'm getting you, sir.
And the issue at hand, especially following the recommendations from Bamenda, creating two education councils, one for the French system, the other for the English-speaking system, and celebrating pedagogic change in the ministries. You don't need to go to the forum to do that, Mr. Keji. It's about actions by the president. He can just sign it. He can go.
Now, we will have a break. With the permission of our producer, Raul Ngufo, who is standing there, we'll probably have to go back memory lane as it all started to see what was supposed to be like the educational system of Cameroon during reunification. When we come back, thanks to this feat we got from a writer, of course, we're going to come back to that very deeply, the reunification of the Cameroons by Kikishi Lawrence, the way he sees how education was supposed to be reshaped in Cameroon. When we come back, we'll continue with our discussion.
Point of view.
And to which way forward, if we move deep into the book?
Now, the way forward that I'm proposing, I've tried to point out what I've called issues at stake. When you look at those issues, you will realize that we're talking about the justice system, for example. There's no way we can, there's a word that the government has been using regularly called harmonization. To me, it's a serious danger, trying to mix everything. It doesn't really work. Education should be distinct. You know that if you are going to this part of the country, you are going to study in this way. If you are going to this other part of the country, this is how you are going to study, and in English or French, so that you don't have the kind of hurdles that we have. Because at the same time that you want to think that it's easy to mix them, there is resistance even from the part of those who speak French. Because I give you an example. When you want to say, okay, the curriculum will, there is a school, the duration in school is going to last the same. Everybody agrees. We say, okay, secondary education will be 5 years for the two systems. Everybody says yes. Francophones will no longer be 4 years. They say yes. The high school will be 2 years. Everybody says yes. We will delete probatoire. Everybody says yes. But when they go back, they say, but hey, what have we done? We now look like those people. And then they say no. So since 1995, the probatoire has been there. Since 1995, the secondary school in the Francophone section has been 4 years. Nothing has changed. So the way forward, we'll look at those aspects. After education, you have, I've pointed out the flag, for example. The flag at the beginning was for the French independent Cameroon, and it was green, red, yellow. With the coming of the Anglophones, they had to put 2 stars to recognize a reality, because the coming of the Anglophones was a reality, it's a fact. People with a government who came in with land that was theirs, so to add to the people on this other side with their own land and population. So to recognize that, they put 2 stars. Now if it is 1 star, it puts a question mark on that reality which we still have today. So I think that we should go back to that. And then I was pointing out the issue of the national anthem. I'm surprised that Cameroon is the only country that does not have a national anthem. It has national anthems. In other words, when you're in a choir, what you sing, the person in Bertois is singing his own, and then two of you.
And as much as there's something like a rhyme pattern?
Yeah, the rhyme pattern is like two of us can hum, but what we hum may not mean the same thing. We may be humming and you think that I'm praying the Our Father in the Catholic Church, and somebody will say, no, I'm just singing a dirge. So the humming, that is the music that we hear, it stays. It can be one all over the world, and everybody will understand it. But now the content, the meaning, what are you saying about your country? We should be saying something, because it's like incantation in our traditional setup or in our religious circles. So the anthem, and that's why that one makes it solemn. The words you pronounce make it solemn. The words you pronounce attach you to that country, and that is still lacking. I want to inform you that up to 1978, there was no national anthem in English, and the trouble was because of the translation difficulties. And that's why the proposal I'm making is that if we are in a federation, we could also have a federated national anthem in such a way that if you are in English, you speak English, you sing an anthem that is adopted in the assembly of that part of the country. And then the two parts can share whatever they used to share between 1961 and 1972. And life was going on without any problems. So, or should I say, without problems of this magnitude like what we have today.
And maybe the judiciary too.
The judiciary, yes. You will see that the Criminal Procedure Code, up to this date, nobody will be able
Well, that was Kikichi Lawrence, the author of the reunification of the Cameroon's Requiem for a Nation, where you had Lawrence, particularly on the issue of education, actually pointing out in his book. We will still come back to that detailing.
Actually,
yes,
he is actually making the point there, and the fact is that the drive, to mix up everything by those who are running education matters in Cameroon, supersedes the spirit of the law that was meant to keep the two systems separate. And that's where the problem is. And that's why we said government can do a lot of things, like she has done already, that she might not be putting the finger on the issue. I want to come back to the education councils I talked about. In the Anglo-Saxon system of education, Anglo-Saxons understand that education business is too vast and too sensitive for one ministry in a regime that is elected along party lines, and the minister appointed along party lines, and every other person along that chain appointed along party lines to manage. That's why every Anglophone system of education, or every Anglo-Saxon country, has an education council. So the teachers ask for two education councils, one for the French-speaking system and the other one for the English-speaking system. The education council runs issues like research, policy formulation and implementation, regulating education at all levels, and lots of other things. The ministry can contain itself with management of personnel, supervising instruction and pedagogy, and so on and so forth. It is fundamental. You get to the ministries, you must structure the ministry. Each Ministry of Education has to have the pedagogic chain separated. For example, after the minister, it doesn't matter who he may be, you need an Inspector General, you need a Secretary of State, Anglophone, another one, Francophone, you need an Inspector General Pedagogy, Anglophone and Francophone, and then you have the chain separated right down to the classrooms. That is in the spirit of the law. When the law says there shall be two systems that shall coexist, each preserving its specificity in evaluation and award of certificates. That is what it means.
That's Vesta, the government thinks it's so cumbersome running the two separately, the two councils.
It is not. That is
financially absorbing.
No, government doesn't think that way. That's what should happen. Look, the Anglophone expert in education sees things from a different perspective, like the Francophone. And these are two systems. One country, two systems. That's what was supposed to prevail, Mr. Keja. And until that is done, no matter how many things else are done, the education problem stands. We're talking about the National School of Engineering. Take note of the fact that in secondary education, General education had no problem. The problem posed when the children leave advanced level. Where do they go? But in technical education, you understand, Anglophones from 1 to class 7 are subjected to the Francophone system of education. And again, we need to understand, if you have to assess a problem and solve it, understand it and solve it, you must look back into the history of that problem, accept the history, and probably reconcile with where things went wrong. That's what has not been done in this country. Prominent professors in the Ministry of Higher Education tell us, like we met some of them some time ago, they tell us that there was never a system of education, of technical education for Anglophones. Is that correct? You know about Ombe?
I know about
If you will not accept that there was never a technical education system for Anglophones, it means you have refused the history, and so you cannot correct what needs to be corrected. So, it is it's a simple problem that has a simple solution, which the system is not yet ready to put its finger on for now.
Did you see? Do you find any problem in that, Dominic Meme, and the fact that these two systems cannot cohabit or be harmonized? You know, Kikishi pointed out some certain aspect of harmonization.
I think what the teacher is explaining there is very important. You talk about the fact that if we are running the two systems, that it will be cumbersome. We would prefer to run a system that is cumbersome to bring out quality landed people, or we run the easiest way and bring out what we have, the mess we have today. I suggest that the Minister of Secondary Education might be one, but the councils, the specific council that takes specificities concerning Francophone and the Anglophones should be there in order to monitor these rare qualities that we found in the Anglo-Saxon system of education and the Francophone. We are not saying that maybe the Francophone system is bad or the Anglophone system is bad. I think the mixture of these two that does not bring out any quality is what is bothering most Cameroonians today. If we can respect the specific values of the two systems of education and make sure we empower them and bring out the good qualities in them without mixing up the two, it's going to do the country a lot of good. That's what I think.
It's like mixing reagents in your laboratory that might not produce a very positive result. Chuka?
I think the problem that he's posing here goes down to the problem of proportions, and these problems started from the onset. I mean, I think the founding fathers should have seen these problems from the onset. From the moment where you have a minority, it's just like the same issue of bilingualism. We could make our institutions bilingual. That would in no way make the majority of the population bilingual. Okay, we will not force people to be bilingual. More people will speak French than English. I think we have to go beyond this identity issue. And I'm a Pan-Africanist. My view will have to be Pan-Africanist. I'm not imposing that on anyone. Like I said the last time, I think the first time I was here, there is a problem that goes beyond what Mr. Ngang is saying. Even if we resolve it the way he's saying, and we get the pedagogic chain in place and separate all these things, there will still be posed a problem of what we have done of this nation beyond what we got from colonialism. What have we created ourselves? It's all fine to keep those two systems. Keep the two systems of education. Keep the two systems of judicial. It's all fine. But what have we done in this? What makes it authentic? It will still just be a copy and paste of two systems that we are creating. And it is an ingredient for identity clashes. It's part of our history. It's not all of our history. I would not want to stop at 1914. I would like to go beyond that. I mean, I think there is something rich in our cultures. There's so many rich things. Look at the judicial system. There's so many rich things. We have people who are associate professors and large professors in law. We have high jurists in this country. No one has proposed an authentic Cameroonian system that can bring up. People say you cannot harmonize common law and civil law. You cannot harmonize the Anglo-Saxon. Why not? Why do we have to? Why do we have to keep? You may when I get to the end. I have lots of. I may forget some ideas. We have that job to do. It's either we do it as our generation, or our children will have to do it. In order to live together, we have to look for points of common interests. That's how human beings are. You have your interests, I have my interests. If we don't look for common interests, there's no way we can live together. Okay? We must look for common, and I think those common interests are found in our languages, in our local judicial customary systems, in our local educational systems. we can look at those specificities and form. Like right. I'll end with the council, the forum that was proposed in the negotiations. I think it's crucial. Yes, the 95 forum has not been most of the points have not been addressed. Just like the tripartite, has not been totally addressed. We are talking about digitalization today. But let it hold. Let it be put down in history that after this crisis, if a national forum held and all these programs were put in place, at least we have today the government ready to hear. They're listening. They are now more disposed to hear than they were before. Let's move forward.
Sylvester, can we blend these two, like Elvis is saying? Can we blend these two systems and draw a line of a Cameroonized system of education?
It needs a lot of honesty to do that, and that honesty is not there. And I must tell that in the past there have been so many attempts to harmonize systems, and each time there's an attempt to harmonize, it is about the francophone system swallowing up the anglophone system, because management of education in Cameroon is essentially in the hands of francophones at the high level. So you see, I agree with you when you say we need to, actually what's supposed to have been happening in effect is that the two systems are supposed to have been developing. There are lots of things that the common law can get from our customary system and bring up and inculcate into what they have already. If the systems were allowed to evolve, you build both systems from the elements you can have around you, we end up with a very good system. I don't think that the harmonization is the way out. It has failed totally. And you see, it takes hundreds and thousands of years for two systems to evolve to one. It is not with the signature. That's what is happening in Cameroon. They are trying to merge two systems with a signature. Evolution is a very long-term process.
I think that's true.
And when you do that, you want to harmonize with a signature. What we have been deploring is the collateral damage. We don't have time on this set. If you go back to history from 1961 to date, you would have seen the cost, collateral damage on Anglophones in this matter of education. And you understand that it is a long story. As early as 1961, after reunification, our fathers who were students at the time were compelled to make 9 months at home, waiting to have their calendar harmonized with that of the East Cameroon at the time. And that's what had followed all through. Each time there is an attempt to harmonize, it is one system paying the price for the other. But it looks like the system in place is running against the wind. The wind is in the direction of Anglo-Saxon values.
I think that's the error we are making.
The government seems to be moving against the direction of the wind.
The error we are making is
the heart of children that are going from Anglo-French Francophone Cameroon to study in our system of education. Why should it be that system crying foul because the values are being destroyed? I think it's something that we need to understand.
I think that's the error we are making. The error of having to choose. I don't want to choose. It's not about. It's not about
choices.
Choice is good.
No.
Have you learned about the Canal system?
Listen. We are not compelled to choose. If we have to choose between these two systems, it's a source of conflict. Immediately,
no,
a source of conflict. We shouldn't say they are running. They are running against the wind.
The systems are there. So now it's a matter of choice.
When you say they are running,
if the systems were not there, then we would not have choices.
Exactly. And why do we have the choice? We have the choice because we are presently not inculcating new ideas into our educational system. We are still having to choose between two things. What is the authentic nature of our educational system? What have the pedagogic inspectors, the great educationalists, what have the Anglophone and Francophones who have studied elsewhere in the world, what have they brought that is authentic to the Anglophone educational system? I don't. It's not my place to judge the Canadian system. No. I may not even know it. I'm talking about our own system. Finally, it's not one way. There are a few examples too, where that choice has gone the other way. Let's be honest too. That choice of, I'm saying choosing is wrong, but even when you look at the choosing that has been going on since sometimes the choosing has going. We have a BMP system in our higher education in Cameroon now since 2009, I think. BMP is Bachelor, Masters and PhD. It's an Anglo-Saxon system. Cameroon adopted in 2009, and all universities in Cameroon.
That is the higher education system now.
It is education. We are now in higher education. We have, like in the judicial system, for example, our criminal procedure, our penal code, the new criminal
procedure code,
which is a derivative of the common law system. The nulla prosequens and the habeas corpus. Implementation is another part.
And when laws are not implemented, do you think it is good?
That's wrong. That's governance now. We're talking about problem of governance. That has nothing to do with choice between systems.
We'll come to that, gentlemen. Ngan, well, you and I know very well that the Bamenda University is flagging on, the engineering department is flagging on. Well, that might not be the problem.
It's a good thing for the system.
It's a good thing for the system.
It doesn't solve the crisis.
But then this is a headway for the government. Government has stretched out a hand, a good one, to the teachers, and I think it's down for the teachers too to say, okay, we now probably will go back to class, and
teachers are going back to class.
Thank you. Let me make a point there. Be very careful. The hold up now in education.
It's not the teachers anymore. The teachers
I told you earlier that the teachers' strike was not supposed to be indefinite. It's because of the compelling nature of the issues. The teachers' strike is restricted. When you are a teachers' a trade union and you cannot pay your workers, you have a very short time you can run the strike. You have to call it and come back. It's not about teachers now. Teachers are, and the children, they are on one platform waiting for things to be normal.
What things?
I mean, for the crisis to end. We are like in a political hold-up. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, we are victims of a situation where government has allowed the problem of Anglophone to explode. It's a major problem now. We can only pray that there is a political solution that can encapsulate everything else. But we are here to articulate and to point out the specifics on the education aspect of the problem. A polytechnic in Bamenda, or National School of Engineering in Bamenda, it's a good thing for the educational landscape in Cameroon. But to think that is solving the problem, like I said, the problem of Anglophone technical education was never the distance between Bamenda and Yaoundé, for Polytech Yaoundé. It was never.
It was one.
It was about the conception of the school, who runs the school. When you leave Bamenda, you go to Yaoundé, you write an exam that is set by a francophone, translated by the same francophones. I mean, you understand what the problem is. So if you create a polytech, if you create an INSET, for example, in every division of Anglophone Cameroon, and the management of those schools is just like we had it in INSET Douala or in Polytechnic Yaoundé, you are not solving any problem. That's why to solve the problem of Anglophones in education, especially technical education, you must go back to history. Take, for example, when they launched recruitment for teachers in that School of Engineering, will you see Anglophones? Will you see them? You won't have them coming. Because since the 70s, the system was designed to asphyxiate the progress of Anglophones in technical education. And so if you have to solve the problem, go back to the roots. Like I said, have these institutions that would give Anglophones the chance to regenerate the system that was killed in Ombe and put it in place. And when you create an INSET, like the one in Douala, in Bamenda, let it be Anglo-Saxon. If you need experts to teach there, and you actually wish to build up an Anglo-Saxon system of education, you must go beyond the Cameroon borders. If you look only into Cameroon, Anglophones are not there. Electrical engineering, how many engineers would raise their hands? Anglophones trained in Cameroon. When INSET Douala in those days, Polytechnic Yaoundé in those days, was virtually a no-go zone. No-go zone in terms of how many people went in and out from English-speaking part of Cameroon. So it's an issue that is complex, but simple at the same time. And like I said, the drive to mix things up supersedes the spirit of the laws that were designed to allow the two systems coexist and preserve their specificities. And like I was making reference to Canada, we usually compare ourselves to Canada. But Canada is a stable country because they don't mix up the systems. It's a French Canada, there's Francophone Canada, and there's Anglophone Canada. They run their country on on basis of unity in diversity. And that's what I thought we ought to be doing here. That's what we have to do here. Unity in diversity.
Thanks very much, Sylvester Ngan, for that very brilliant one. In fact, that is, that was one of our major talking points. I think we'll probably move out, Dominic, we may drift out, but not without saying a word on unity in diversity in the educational system.
Yeah, unity in diversity, I think, is a better thing to do. But I think the topic you mentioned we're discussing is school resumption in West Cameroon, 1 year on. I think that is when you ask the teacher in the month of December how school has been in the Northwest and the Southwest, is a question that is very obvious. At the moment, it is not at the level of schools. We are in a crisis situation where you see senior divisional officers, administrators, asking inhabitants of 3 subdivisions to quit their villages.
It means they will not leave. There will not be no school.
Because they are not quitting their villages, carrying along the classrooms on their heads to go study. They are going somewhere first for safety. And the education might not just be in the agenda now. What is in the minds of people in the northwest and the southwest region today, most especially those in remote areas, is safety. That is the first thing. Because a military man and a civilian, they are like a mouse and a cat right now. So it's not a matter of who is going to school. It's true that you get to places like Kumba, Boya, Bamenda Town, Campbell, maybe some developed places, school is going on timidly. But if you get to the villages, I bet you school is not in the agenda. Where you see many youths spend their time now in farms, in forests, for safety reasons. It's not a matter of school today. Just to add one thing, since we are talking about education, this week, the Minister of Secondary Education removed a certain textbook from the book list. The name of the textbook is Moving On.
Moving On.
Yeah, from 2 English language course book, for this reason that in one of the revised edition of the textbook of last year, 2016, there is the flag of the ambassador flag on page 56 of
supposedly ambassador flag.
The ambassador flag on page 59 of the textbooks. I mean, saying that I listened to Kikishi Lawrence saying that we're seeing 2 different national anthems in Cameroon. I think it's right, because I was discussing with colleagues in the newsroom. There is another phrase of the national anthem where we Anglophones sings from Shari, from where the Mongo meanders, something like that.
From Shari, from where the Mongo meanders.
Yeah, in the newsroom, Francophones were telling me that thing have never existed.
But the ignorance?
They were telling me that have never existed. It is not a Cameroon national anthem. You see, those are the differences. We sing 2 different national anthems that maybe both of us we don't even understand.
A crucial issue that we might certainly want to come back to in a subsequent edition of Newsroom. Well, thanks, gentlemen. Stay on the program as we have on our second talking point after this break. It was a historic move at Cameroon's parliament as parliamentarians of the Social Democratic Front took the state hostage. And of course, some say this is a phase 7 mission by the Social Democratic Front of Ni John Frundi in trying to push the government to address the Anglophone crisis. And of course, this was during the last session to vote the budget for the year 2018. Dominique Meme, I will start with you. The SDF has proven beyond reasonable doubt that it is a force, a political force to reckon with, because the Anglophone crisis has reached an unprecedented level where the SDF, as the main opposition party, needed to step in.
I think the SDF, what happened at the National Assembly this week when the SDF members of parliament interrupted the Prime Minister when he was trying to deliver the socio-economic and the political agenda of this country for 2018 is another demonstration of total frustration on the part of the Social Democratic Front, disappointed with the manner to which the 2 houses of assembly are handling the Anglophone crisis. I think when we call parliamentarians of the Social Democratic Front, what they are telling us is the insecurity in the northwest and the southwest has reached a point that so many Cameroonians have died, and there is a need to address this issue once and for all. For these parliamentarians, they want that the issue should be put in the agenda for discussion at the level of the National Assembly and the Senate to bring about a legal and peaceful solution. Now their question is, or their worry now is, the National Assembly have not accepted that this point should be put in the agenda for discussion. So Remember, they started during the plenary session, the opening plenary session, they started by boycotting the National Assembly. They discovered that boycotting the National Assembly was not making any impact, so they have taken another system of getting into the National Assembly and interrupting activities to force lawmakers, most especially the President of the National Assembly and the Speaker of the National Assembly and the President of the Senate, to include this issue in the agenda. They want it to be discussed there for peace to reign. They don't want a situation where military men are sent to the northwest and the southwest to carry out, to brutalize the civilians, and equally on the other hand, where civilians are killing military men. Members of Parliament of the Social Democratic Front want this issue to be solved at the level of the lawmaking houses. And they think that without which, if they don't accept to put this issue on the agenda, like some of them have been telling us, the voting of the 2018 state budget will not be a reality this year. And Kejan Henry, you understand what it means to the entire country. When we get into a new country, without
a new year,
or into a new year without
the finance
law, it will be something. It will be a scandal, I must say.
SDF, some people say, Elvis, that the SDF is parliamentarians of the nation. And so the act that they committed in the parliament wouldn't have been the case. So they should not speak as Anglophone or because the SDF is, anyway, in quote tag, as an Anglophone party, but it's a national party. And the parliamentarians are parliamentarians of the nation, so they were not supposed to push to that far.
Some people could say that, and probably tenable. I wouldn't say so, because if you say there is a problem, if the problem is in the two regions of Cameroon, the SDF could reply you by saying that it's a national problem, and so as parliamentarians of the nation, they should touch it. That's not what interests me. I was really impressed by the way the press me and relate this story with lots of right. I don't see, for me, I won't say it's a known event, but they are just doing their legal rights as parliamentarians. Filibustering it's not new in American Senate and the House of Republicans. It goes on. They're just trying to filibuster the assembly. I don't think like Meme that they actually believe that they can stop the voting of the budget. They are doing it symbolically, both through their base, because I mean, they are not a regional party, but the SDF stronghold is still where these problems are found. So it's their right to, symbolically show their base that they are with them and doing things. We knew of the resignation. I wouldn't call it blackmails, but people went to houses of parliamentarians and forced them to say things that they want to resign. All this is politicking. Okay, they are doing their stuff. The finance committee held yesterday and before yesterday too, and received bills from various ministers already. I think the Minister of Justice, and the Minister of Tourism passed yesterday. Members of SDF parliamentarians that were part of that bureau were seated at the finance committee, and then it was committee TV. They were seated there, and they discussed how the business. It was business as usual yesterday and before.
And all of them.
We have to let the telespectators understand that the parliament has rules, it has ways in which it functions. The bills are passed to the finance committee, which evaluates them. What happens at plenary is that the minister comes in full-seated assembly and then justifies here and there. When the finance committee validates it, it's passed. The majority of the parliament is still CPDM. So they know they're not going to stop the passing of the bill, but they are passing a message across. It's their right. It's up to members of the SDF to argue that, not me.
Sylvester, some people think, it happened when President Biya was out of the country, and immediately came, his airport message was very resounding. Maybe some people are afraid that, what the SDF did in Parliament could be could cause them some problems.
No.
Do you see that?
No.
Or they are just doing their normal job as parliamentarians would do?
In fact, for once we should be happy that a parliamentarian can rise from the time Honorable Weber started talking. That is what people expect.
From MPs?
You see, it becomes dangerous when you cannot distinguish between an MP and an appointed minister. An MP is elected to stand for its people and say things as they are. And our parliament, from the time, since I became a conscious person and I could talk about it, they have been more or less a rubber stamp parliament until Honorable Weber stood up. And until we are seeing what we are seeing now. You see, living parliaments are not parliaments where people go sleep, get up, clap, and bills are passed. When issues become as hot as the Anglophone problem is, and the parliament is sailing through it as if nothing is happening, I think Cameroonians have reason to feel like they're orphans, because there are three arms of government: the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. The people, the common man, depends on two systems, on two arms: the legislative and especially the judiciary, and especially the legislative. We have been feeling like orphans in Cameroon because the Anglophone crisis is unprecedented in the history of Cameroon. And to see that at this point in time, people are still begging for Parliament to talk about it. Where are we?
Let us just... Henry, let me just come in there.
Come on, Dominic.
Just to add that the Anglophone crisis has been there for over 50 years, but the heat of it started in October 2016. Now, the following month, that was in November 2016, we had the last session of the National Assembly. Nothing was discussed about the Anglophone crisis. 2017, in the month of March, we had the National Assembly. Nothing was discussed. In the month of June, at the National Assembly, nothing was discussed. This is November, nothing is being discussed. And people are killed on a daily basis. I don't just understand how
is that
a majority of parliamentarians at the National Assembly are keeping aside. They go back home, they bury the deads, they visit the injured people in hospitals, and they come back to the National Assembly and say nothing. In fact, logically, it doesn't make sense to a human being that is conscious of the worries of his own people.
Yes.
No, I'm saying that it's disgraceful. I mean, if those elected individuals, they still have time to catch up.
I remember on the eve of the plenary session, people of Jakiri constituency, they marched to the resident of their parliamentarian, asking him not to go to the National Assembly. I think they are right.
They are right.
These are the people that asked him to go and represent us. They have discovered that their aspirations, their visions are not being taken into consideration. So they ask their representative, don't go and represent us again in a house that does not care about our well-being.
Well, thanks very much, gentlemen. Let us just get, Raul, permit us have a glimpse of what happened at the Parliament, what the Social Democratic Front did. Well, MPs of the Social Democratic Front there, Elvis, that is the first of its kind in history in Cameroon.
It seems to be, and we don't need to get to this stage, but we are all in front of a fact that has happened. The SDF has made its point. It's a tad populist, but their point is made. You know, in politics, we have to be careful when we see politicians taking acts. Their acts have intentions, have objectives and everything. The SDF has not had a handle on this thing. I was talking about the intelligence being surprised by the movements in Cameroon. The SDF too was surprised. They were surprised by their base. The SDF was not, we should not act today like the SDF is some savior who had the minds of the people. No. They too were surprised by this thing. And they did not preempt. They did not carry out preemptive acts. It seems to me that this is an attempt to regain their base and to tell the people we are still with you, and it's just part of politicking. What is interesting for me is what actions can be taken, and being a pragmatist that I am, I know our parliament does not take many actions. The problem rests at a 2D, it rests on one man. We have a super presidentialist system. He should implement what is in the law, and what I'm expecting from this as a solution to this crisis will be the creation of, we have regions on paper that do not exist. The creation of regional councils will be a good step towards saying that, okay, if some of us are supporting the government in their move to say, no, we want one nation. So most of the Anglophones are for keeping the nation together. It's not, this a minority of people who want secession. But at the same time, if we are going to say we don't want secession, we are supposed to look at a government that is saying, okay, the law says decentralization. Let us implement it. If you don't implement this decentralization, you are giving arguments for secessionists.
Do you think, Henry, let me just disagree with Elvis saying that SDF demonstration at the National Assembly is to regain recognition at the level of the base. I beg to disagree. SDF today at the National Assembly has 18 members of parliament. They have senators. For 22 years, SDF have been at the National Assembly. It's not through dancing at the National Assembly and disturbing the Prime Minister when he's speaking that the people voted these 18 parliamentarians to go and represent them. SDF have been there since 1990, and there is not because they want to take advantage of the Anglophone crisis and do this. These parliamentarians, they are doing this consciously. They have their loved ones. They have people of their constituency that have been killed. They have others that have been injured. They are doing this out.
Parliamentarians too.
Why the issue now is, why are these CPDM parliamentarians not talking?
If they sang, would you have said they thought about the people?
Is it like they are not conscious about?
We are not. The criteria now for love of the people is to sing in the parliament.
It's not
if the CPDM parliamentarians from Southwest and North Dance, would you have said that?
Henry,
I think we should go beyond.
I think I understand the dormant way lawmaking bodies have been in the country, until it's becoming a culture for Cameroonians to think that people are not supposed to force their point through at the National Assembly. We watch this in South Africa, in Nigeria, in other developed countries. That is democracy.
It's normal.
Permit these guys to do it, and don't say that they are taking advantage to at least.
They have to permit me to say that.
No,
I think they have to permit me to say anything about
that is not the problem.
I have a right to analyze this.
Parliamentarians of the CPDM party that are coming from the Northwest and the Southwest, they have loved one that they have to bury because of this Anglophone crisis. But because of what they call party lines, they go sit at the National Assembly, say nothing about it. It's a disgrace, I must say.
Do you think President Paul Biya will probably, since Elvis said, well, we know it's a hyper presidential system, maybe he might, at the people are expecting his end of year speech, or maybe during 2018 plenary session of March, maybe they will probably want to talk something on that?
Well, we have expected and we keep expecting, and nothing so powerful seems to be coming. I think that we are at the crossroads of history, and as a normal citizen, I expect and pray that room will be given for the Cameroonian citizen to express himself in a way as to provide a solution. I don't like statistics of this minority for secession. Those are not things we should be saying. A problem like this, if citizens have to express themselves in a problem like this, it's only the ballot box. A referendum is a way out. That will be the threat in the history of Cameroon. Why is it so difficult to get there? So, in fact, we are really fed up with the things that are happening, and the president is still the president, and the onus lies on him to decide what he does with the fate of this country.
Well, we are on the crossroads of history, as you rightly put it, and the reunification of Cameroon is an assessment of a serious political period in Cameroon, during which a young country was being constituted from two distinct English and French cultures in 1961. In fact, Kekeshi Lawrence is the author of the reunification of the Cameroons, and of course tried to revisit some of the defining moments during the negotiation in the late 50s, wondering why the agreements signed have never been made public, or some of the hidden agreements. Let us just revisit. I had talked with him, and this is just what he had to say on this issue. And with the evolution of things, do you think there is sincerity in the reunification of the two Cameroons?
In the beginning, there was sincerity, because way back at the creation of the party, at the independence of Cameroon, the French-speaking Cameroon, if you read the preamble of their constitution, I say their constitution because at the time we or our parents were not yet here. So at that time, they indicated at the preamble that they were going to make efforts at satisfying the wishes of those Cameroonians who were separated from them by history. And so it indicated that they had plans to bring back and make Cameroon one in a way. Unfortunately for them, staying away for 40 years and more is not an easy thing to just mingle like you take water and other material and mix together. So we're talking about people who have been separated for more than 40 years, used to different cultures, different environments, different way of doing things. And then when you look at the promises that were made too at the reunification, I was surprised at the sincerity in those statements. Amado Ahijo, for example, would make statements that if you quote today and wake him up, he would not believe that he made them. So when you read at those ones, you think that there was some sincerity. When you look at the way power was shared, you think that there was some sincerity. They would tell you, no, I am head of state now. If during the next election you are head of state, know that the vice president is going to come from my own side. Those kind of arrangements. Another one stated that, okay, if we have a federal assembly and the bill comes in from anywhere, because it was open, it was not just the government proposing bills. If the bill comes from anywhere, for that bill to go through and become law, our two assemblies have to vote in a majority from the two sides. In other words, out of the 50 MPs, because there were 50 at the time, 10 from the Anglophone side and 40 from the Francophone side. So if among the 10, if only 4 voted for the bill, and on the side of the Francophones, if 30 or more voted for the bill, that bill was not going to pass. The bill will be forwarded to the two prime ministers who would look at it, put in the necessary modifications that are needed, and then bring it back to the House of Assembly for adoption.
Yeah. Yes, come on.
And don't forget, those who speak English, the Anglophones at the time, they came in with the idea of a Senate. In other words, the Senate was supposed to be the supreme representation of the people. In other words, after the Assembly, the Senate had to be the final place where any decision in the country was supposed to be taken. And the Senate could put the President of the Republic to test. It could question the actions of anybody, including the President of the Republic. Unfortunately, the regime at the time foresaw that they were going to run into trouble on many aspects, so they rejected that aspect. So I think that from the word go, there was some honesty that was portrayed. But along the line, human greed, as I may put it, and other power-hungry interests came in and made things the way they were after 1972, and today we still have the problems that are emanating from that original.
Well, that was Kikishi Lawrence, the author of the book, The Reunification of the Cameroons. Elvis, I saw you sunk, wondering what is really happening, if this is the history of this country, as recounted by Kikishi Lawrence.
Well, it was interesting to listen to him talk. I'm sure he could have said more if we had more time. It's a very deep problem, and Mr. Sylvester was saying before that the basis of the issue is political. It goes down to the politics of 61, and we have to be careful the way we analyze this thing and take dispassionate and look at the facts, and then go forward from there. Cameroon has brilliant historians from both sides, Anglophone, Francophones. They've discussed these things. Victor Julius Ngo, Magloire Undua, they have talked these things, and if you look at what they say from both sides, you see the facts are still clear. Of course, there are a few exaggerations from the general populace, but in the academia, the facts are clear. There is this problem that was there from the onset, that of majority minorities. When you want to mix two people, there will have to be these problems in the long run. When it has to do with politics. Remember that before 61, most people talk about Fumban like Fumban was so defining. Of course, it was ceremonial, but what happened in Fumban was just a ceremonial event. The discussions Ahijo had with Foncha before Fumban, in fact, before the plebiscite, dated from 59, in Douala, in Yaoundé, and in Bamenda. So nobody was surprised. We have our responsibility, our elites, our forefathers had responsibilities for what happens, the preparedness of the delegation. All these things are facts that everybody knows already. The unpreparedness of front delegations and everything. Ahijo had his plan. His plan was to move from a union to an integration into one.
Thank you very much, Harvis.
That was his original plan and was known to everyone.
Yeah. Dominic Member, in 15 seconds.
Yeah, I listened to Kekishi Lawrence. There is a last sentence that he mentioned saying that at the beginning there was honesty, and because of greed and the need to grab power forever, things are getting off hand. I think that is the bottom line of it. I think at the beginning there were very good principles put in place for this coming together to be a successful one. But as time goes on, there is that need to over-dominate a particular group, which is bringing about problem today. Because what we have today called the Anglophone crisis is because of this a shadowing attitude. A shadowing attitude that Anglophones believe they have witnessed in the hands of Francophones for quite a long time. That is why they are starting to say, hey, it's time to be, with some people going to the extreme of talking about secession. But I think that if justice take its course, everything is going to be okay. Since we are running out of time, Kejan Henry, just to mention that, go back to the decision signed by the Senior Divisional Officer for Mangu Division. Villages that have been mentioned in this particular place, at least for security reasons, inhabitants need to quit for security reasons, because no one knows what might happen next if they continue staying there when a communique is asking them to quit. But the main question that remains is they are quitting there to go to where? No measures have been taken to resettle these people that government is asking to leave their villages.
Well, we pray that there should be no mass exodus. Thanks very much for coming, Sylvester.
Mr. Kejang, I just want to end by saying that history is very stubborn, very, very stubborn, and has no mercy for people who refuse to learn its lessons. Those who are running the affairs of this nation now have to stop, accept our history and reconcile with it before they can understand where we are and at least be able to decide where we need to go.
Well, thanks very much, gentlemen. In fact, Jean Nicho and Rawun Gufo put this package together, and of course we had Roland Lebja, the controls room. Divine Taruke actually coordinated the program, and from all of us, I've been Kejan Henry Atimbe thanking you, and stay blessed.